Hello, my name is Satori Akatsuki, and I am doing an interview with DrkTomy about my new album. And yeah, he's going to be texting me the questions because he's not able to ask them over voice right now, and I'm going to be replying over voice so that this can be uploaded. Number one, who is Satori Akatsuki? So, for the longest time, my alias online was just Satori. And I don't exactly remember why I picked that. I think it was just I liked the name of it. I just liked the feeling of the Japanese language back then, and it was like sometime 2019. And I picked Satori because it felt simple, cute. It just felt, simple, like easy to remember, especially in all lowercase. And then back when I created Satori Akatsuki, I had this really close friend of mine called Mango After Dawn. They're the person who did the artwork for Digital Loneliness. And Akatsuki basically just means dawn in Japanese, or like sunrise. And I picked that because I really, really care about that friend of mine. They're very important to me. So, Satori Akatsuki means basically enlightened dawn, but it's just a combination of two things that are important to me that I've had for a long time. But as a person, I think, like as an alias, Satori Akatsuki encompasses the wonder of, like, I don't know. I'm not exactly how to say it right now with this album that's coming out. It's Satori Akatsuki is like an extension of me. I think it's like an extension of, like, so where a lot of this stuff for this album's coming from is back when I was younger, when Worlds by Porter Robinson came out. There was stuff like Adventure Time and Being Puppy Cat and Steven Universe, and I was younger and I was watching all this stuff and listening to Worlds, and it all like blended together through my young brain. And over the years, it's morphed into this thing, this mood, this feeling that this album's trying to convey. And I think Satori Akatsuki is a bit of like an extension of that part of me that wants to make that album. Anyway, yeah, we can go with the next question. Can you tell me about Satori's dreams and fears? I think my dreams are to have an impact on people. I want my music to reach people, and I want it to make them emotional, and I want it to bring out things in them that they thought they didn't have. Like, and with this new album, I want it to like take them to this world that this album's created, and I want it to make them happy. I want my music to impact people, make people happy and emotional and stuff. As for my fears, sometimes I worry about, what if I can't do that? What if my music doesn't have that impact on people? What if I'm not able to have that reach? Sometimes I go on like Twitter and I see these big artists who I know, or who maybe I'm friends with, and I see all the replies, and they're all like, oh my god, this is so beautiful, this is going to be amazing, or this is the most amazing thing I've heard in months, or this is going to be a top 10. And it's like 20 of these replies are like, 10,000 likes, and I see that, and a part of me, it gets jealous, and it gets worried, and it's like, how come these people get to have such big impacts, but I don't? And that was a big fear of mine until really recently, when I realized, I was just laying in bed, and I was sort of like meditating, and I realized it doesn't matter how many people your music impacts. It matters that your music impacts anyone at all. Even if just one person feels touched by your music, just one person, it's such an intricate and beautiful and important thing to have been able to reach yourself into that person's life and have been able to make them feel something with what you created. And to me, that is one of the most important things about me creating my music, is being able to do that for at least someone. So my main fear used to be that I wasn't going to be able to do that for enough people. But I've realized it doesn't matter the quantity of people you do that for. It just matters that you do it for anyone. So yeah, that's my dreams and fears. What inspired you to make music? Did you remember the moment or the song that made you click with it? I do, actually. What originally inspired me to make music was this song by this duo called Boards of Canada. And it was a song called Olsen. And if you haven't listened to it, you go listen to that now. But that song, I was like 10, I think, or 9, and I had never heard anything besides stuff on the radio, and that was my first time actually hearing something that wasn't like pop music or rap music, and I was blown away by it because it has this like really nice ambient synth to it, and this beautiful piano at the end, and it just feels like it connects with you. And my 10-year-old brain was blown away by music being able to sound like that. So that's what inspired me to start making music, because I wanted to make something which made people feel the way I did, which was this amazement and awe and wonder that music could be able to be something more than just pop music on the radio. And I wanted people to feel like the beauty that 10-year-old me felt when I heard that song for the first time. And I used my first music was just like really basic GarageBand ambient music. Like I would literally just take a preset pad in GarageBand, and I would literally just play like 4 notes, only the black notes, and I would put it on SoundCloud. And I remember the first thing I put on SoundCloud, and I don't remember why, it was called Event Horizon, and it got 800 plays, I remember, and 10-year-old me was like blown away that, my little ambient song got 800 plays, and that alone gave me motivation to keep doing it. And I think after that, it was no longer, motivation to get attention, but a lot of the stuff I did after that was like Aphex Twin IDM stuff. And that was just because I wanted to become like Aphex Twin or Boards of Canada. I wanted to be able to, I looked up to them. They were kind of like my heroes. That's what made me want to make music for the longest time, and that's how I started making music. It was with the song Olsen by Boards of Canada. What inspired you to write the story of your upcoming album? So, for those of you who don't know, I've written out this like 48, almost 50-page document, which is this whole like world and story that I've laid out for the album. And the album sort of like follows this whole storyline. But I don't really know what made me want to write the story. I think that with Digital Loneliness, I saw this like this world when I was writing the song. I saw this like these landscapes in my head, and these mountains, and not mountains but hills, and like grassy plains, and I wanted to turn that into something more. I wanted to get more into that feeling. I wanted to like immerse myself in that little world that I pictured in my head. So after I wrote Digital Loneliness, I went on a Google Doc and I just started writing things that felt like that to me, that encapsulated that feeling, that world that I pictured. And And eventually, over time, that became its own story. Like, I developed a whole, like, 3,000-year storyline that spans across the whole 3,000 years. And that all started out from just picturing this world inside my head. And through time, as I wrote the story, I think it just was things that popped into my head that made sense or that fit the vibe of the album. And there's some other things, like some other like my inspirations that I drew into the story, like One Shot, for example, huge inspiration. I included a reference to a location in the game called the Refuge in a later part of the story. So the story is like a mix of my inspirations for the album and this like world that I saw from writing Digital Loneliness, which was the first song I wrote for the... Oh, actually, no, that's a lie. There was another song that came before that, but that was like the first song I wrote with the intention for it to be on the album. Anyway, yeah. During the process, did you discover music that you've never heard before? Yeah, I guess not directly through the album, but you know, while producing the album alongside it, I was finding some music to do for DJ sets. And SoundCloud has such an amazing repository of music and this really good like song selection algorithm for you, which bases it off, you know, things that you'd listened to before. And yeah, I've heard tons of music I've never heard before. I remember specifically when Quest for Fire by Skrillex came out. I really hated that album because I felt, when I listened to it, I felt emotionless. You know, I didn't feel anything. It didn't like strike anything within me. And I didn't even feel like I didn't even feel like getting up and moving. I didn't feel like it was a club banger or anything. I just didn't feel anything. It felt emotionless to me, and I know a lot of people disagree with that, but it's just how I felt then. And I got really pessimistic about, you know, electronic music because I was seeing all these people being like, this is the best album he's released, as clear as his past album, totally, you know, and I just totally disagreed with that. And I guess I got like super hyper locked and hyper focused on that album and people being like it was people being like it was the next big thing. And it got me really just pessimistic and worried about EDM and electronic music. And I searched, I just went on SoundCloud to go find some new things, and that's when I found this like plethora of new songs and this amazing, emotional, deeply connective style that was getting released. Like, some of the songs got released days before I found them. And I was blown away that stuff was like that was still getting, you know, put out. And my mind just totally shifted and I realized, wait, new amazing music is always getting put out. You just have to like, you might just be like super hyper focused on something that isn't what you're looking for. So as cliche as it sounds, there's always new things coming out, new like emotional things that are exactly what you're looking for that, you know, maybe you just haven't found yet, or maybe you haven't looked for it yet in the right places. But yeah, that's my answer to that question. What's the most important thing for you while writing songs? The feeling, like how it makes you feel when you listen to it. If I had to rank it on like a top 10, number 1 would be, how does the song make you feel? That's the most important thing to me. Number 2 is, does the song sound good? Number 3 is, I actually don't know what number 3 is, but those are the 2 most important things, is how does the song make you feel, and does it sound good? Sounding good is subjective. It's just like, you know, does it please your ears, essentially? Because I don't want to put something out that's like, you know, like totally horribly mastered. But the most important thing is that when I'm writing a song, I'm trying to write it that encapsulates some feeling. Because when I'm writing something, it's always around some emotion or some feeling that I want to like integrate within the song, or you know, my songs are very, very emotion based or like feeling based, and if I can't integrate that within the song, or the song doesn't make you feel anything, and you're just like, oh yeah, it's a banger, yeah, banger, dude, then and you're not like, oh, that made me really emotional, or that made me feel something, then I probably am not gonna like what I've written unless it does that for you. And I know so many people say that music is all about what makes you happy, and yeah, it is. And what makes me happy is making other people feel things and emotions that, maybe they haven't felt before, or they, have buried deep. And that's why I make music, like I said. So the most important thing to me is, how does the person feel listening to this? It's not about like how, is this a banger? Are people gonna jump up and down to this? Or like, is this going to ruin my image as an artist? Or is this conforming to a certain style? It's none of that. I don't care what style it's in. I don't care if it does or doesn't make people jump up and down and it's a club banger. I care about if it touches you more than just being a song. Yeah, that's what the most important thing to me is while I'm writing. Is there a character or a certain place on your story that you like the most, or somehow you feel attached to it? Which one and why? Of course, I'm gonna have to say Proto from Digital Loneliness. For those of you who don't know, in Digital Loneliness, the robot, the story essentially is that this ancient society, or this civilization that used to rule the planet, constructed Proto for reasons we don't know in Digital Loneliness, and she awakes, and for hundreds of years she wanders the planet exploring, the dilapidated structures and abandoned buildings, and she goes through and she reads all these, memoirs and dialogues and diaries from all these people, detailing like these intricate, unique people and their own personal experiences. And at the end of Digital Loneliness, essentially she's come in contact with a human from a computer she found in the city, and her energy source is slowly running out over time, and she entrusts the human with all the knowledge she has about the planet, because her mission is to keep the legacy of the planet and the people who used to live there. And I just feel really deeply connected to Proto, because she has this sense of awe and wonder about everything around her, and this deep melancholy. She goes around, reading the notes of these other people, and it feels like she's observing people's lives as an outsider, and she's curious and just wondering what more is there to these people. And something about that just feels connected to me, and I'm not sure why. But her whole life is just this melancholic but beautiful, beautiful life of exploring this planet and, being... you get what I mean. But yeah, that's who I feel connected to most in the story for the album. What was the most difficult what was the most difficult thing about the writing process in general? I would definitely have to say, sometimes I lose track of the world I'm trying to encapsulate, or the feeling that I'm trying to get into my songs, and I get worried that I'll never be able to, get it back once I start to feel a little bit off track. So I think maybe the most difficult thing is creating something that really, at the same time as touching the listener, is connected to this world that I'm imagining. because it's very hard to. It's very easy to just write a song that's not connected to anything. It's hard for me to write something that is consistent with a certain world or feeling. Like writing one thing for it might be a little bit easy, but waking up every single day and coming into the studio and thinking of how I can incorporate this world into the song sometimes it's really difficult. But that's easing up a lot. It's become a lot easier to do that now. But I think that is the most difficult thing, is being able to write things that I feel both touch you and put you in this world that I've created for the album. Who is your album for? Wow, that's a difficult question. I think my album is for those lonely people out in the world who maybe they're kept by a 9-to-5 job, or they go to school and they're high school or something, or just anything. It's for those like lonely people with imaginations, with the desire to escape their reality and the desire to go somewhere better, or love someone, or feel a different way, or those creative people who imagine these intricate worlds in their head and have this always active imagination. I want my album to be for them. I want it to be a comfort for them. I want it so that when they listen to my music and they listen to this album, they get transported to that other world. I want it to be something where they can come home and listen to it and imagine in their head themselves in that storyline, and then themselves in the world. And I want it to be something where it's personal to them. They make it their own thing. So it's maybe for those, just lonely people stuck in life, waiting until things get better. Maybe they don't feel connected to anyone, or maybe they don't feel connected to anyone, or are lonely, and I want this album to be like a friend to them, and be like comfort, and be this other world they can go to anytime they want to when they turn on any of the songs. So that's my answer to that question. Last question, what are your 5 favorite albums of all time and why? So I'm notoriously difficult for picking my favorite album. My number one favorite that always, I think, has been one of my favorites since I listened to it the first time is Lift Your Skinny Fists Like Antennas to Heaven by Godspeed You Black Emperor. Because that was the first album that I actually managed to listen to all the way through. Like, there were other albums where I would turn it on, but I couldn't listen to it the whole way through. I would only be able to listen to it song by song. But Lift Your Skinny Fist Like Antennas to Heaven was the first album where I could listen to it all the way through. And not only that, but the first album to make me cry really hard. Like, sobbing. Just because of how beautiful it felt. And again, how much it connected to my emotions and my feelings. So my number one favorite album probably right now is Lift Your Skinny Fist Like Antennas to Heaven, and it probably will be that for quite a bit. At number 2, I'm not sure, because we could take this several different directions. What are your favorite albums in terms of what inspired you the most, or what are your favorite albums in terms of what makes you the most emotional, or something it's very hard for me to pick definitive ones. But at number 2, God, this is really hard. Would probably be Worlds by Porter Robinson. I know that's probably, subject to change, and it's just the first thing that comes into my mind. But Worlds is one of my favorite albums ever. because, you know, I listened to it so much when I was young, and it's such a big inspiration on this album. But I don't know. I don't think it actually is number 2. It's up there though. I think I'm just gonna list off, like, you know, different albums without saying the exact order. But Mint Jams by Cassiopeia, or Cassiope, however you want to say it, is really good. Really, really good. Like, city pop, 80s Japanese jazz album. It's really good for just chilling out. One by C418 is amazing. Also one of my favorite albums of all time, like, period. Seriously, just one of the best albums I've ever heard. Makes me feel really, like, I don't know, comforted. Both Minecraft soundtracks, Volume Alpha and Volume Beta, amazing. Like, absolutely amazing. Oceanized by Owl City, really, really, really good. Has Brienne Duran on it, and her voice is really beautiful on some of the songs, like The Saltwater Room. Really, really good song. Nurture, obviously, by Porter Robinson. Really good album. Believe it or not, it's actually not up on the top 5. It's probably in the top 10 or 15. But those are all the songs that come to mind. Sorry, albums that come to mind when I, you know, about my favorite albums of all time. Thank you so much for the interview. Yeah, of course. I was really happy to do this. It's nice to just, like, ramble on for a little bit. You know, the album stuff, but yeah, of course. So that was my interview with DrkTomy, and yeah, thank you for listening. And yeah, also another update about the album. I think I'm gonna release it song by song instead of dropping the whole thing. So yeah, you should expect to see me and Okira's new song out in a couple days. See ya.